It is rare to find so much industry expertise all in one spot, right at your fingertips. The world of public adjusting and insurance claims can be a scary one. This changes now. That's why we built this podcast for you, where all the industry experts converge. Let us be your guide to education and personal growth. You're listening to Because Experience Matters, the show for public adjusters who want to up their game. Hosted by the 2021 Public Adjuster of the Year, Jack Hanks. How much money are you leaving on the table by not knowing all the approaches you can take to maximize the payouts to the insured and profits for your business? On this show, you will discover untapped strategies to become an unstoppable public adjuster and an effective advocate for your clients. In every episode, Jack brings on all the industry big dogs, including leading roofers, contractors, lawyers, accountants, and marketers. You'll access the insider scoop, real case studies, real obstacles, and actionable winning solutions. Let's jump in so that you can stop working hard and start working smart.
All right, guys, Jack Hanks, Because Experience Matter podcast. Today, I am honored and privileged to have literally the godfather, because you're older than I am, Chip. I can say that. So barely of what we do. I have Mr. Chip Merlin here. And first off, Chip, I want to thank you for always being available for me and my team and the trainings. And not many people know how much you actually give back to our public adjusting stuff. And without you, we wouldn't be anywhere near what we are as an entity or knowledge that we have. So first off, thank you for all of that. For I know you're busy as hell. And for you to take an hour and a half of this means a lot to me. So,
Jack, that's very kind of you. It's been a long time, and it's not just me and my firm. There's a lot of people in my firm that actually contribute a lot to public adjusting and education. And it's eventually we're both sides trying to help policyholders out, and that's what our firm's dedicated to do. So, helping others that also help out public adjusters is always good.
It is, because there's a lack of knowledge, man, and it makes my hair fall out, as you can see. So we're trying to do our share as well. But so first thing I want to talk about, Chip, is way back when you went to law school of Florida, right?
I did my undergraduate in the law school of Florida. Yeah, I flew through my undergraduate knowing I was going to go to law school. I mean, the thought of going for 4 years undergraduate and then 3 years, 7 years in college. I mean, I did okay academically, but just sitting behind a desk and doing that, not getting out and, working in a different way, just that whole thought drove me nuts. So I worked real hard to get done on undergraduate school. And then I was a punk baby, a lawyer, who wants to hire somebody who's going to be 22 years old, literally coming out of law school. So I did, in law school, I slowed down a little bit and clerked for a firm. And I didn't want to go work in a library or anything like that. And I was fortunate just to fall into a law firm that was representing insurance companies doing nothing but property insurance law. So that started my first clerkship with them in 1981. And I clerked a lot with them all the way through my graduation, and then I went to work with them to 1985.
So when you were in law school or even an undergrad, did you have any inkling that this was going to be your path? Because I was a poli-sci major in Indiana. I had no idea. I thought I'd be some, disc jockey in Chicago somewhere, not doing this stuff. Did you have any idea when you were a sophomore or junior in college that this would become your path? Because you're a big deal, Chip. You know that, right? I mean, this is crazy.
I really don't, I don't think of myself as a big deal, and I don't think I'm a big deal. I think there's a lot of people in this business that do things at a very high level. I don't know. I like most young people. I think most young people have a lot of dreams about what they might want to do, and there's a lot of things that change the paths of where you might want to go to and what you want to do, and personal decisions regarding family and other interests that might come up. I mean, look how many changes have happened, just since my graduation from law school, new technologies and new opportunities. And there's nothing that says, I did not grow up in a family where my father was a lawyer As a matter of fact, I think my father was distressed that I was becoming a lawyer.
What did he do? Can I ask?
Yeah, he was in the United States Coast Guard, and he
wow.
became a Coast Guard officer. But even he, he was stationed on a atoll in the middle of the Philippines somewhere. But it was an island and atoll that was about 2 miles long and a half-mile wide. And after 18 months of that, he'd had it with the United States Coast Guard. And so he got out for about 2 years, went back. It was the only time I lived close to Tampa, except when I was born. My father was born and raised in Tampa. And but the United States Coast Guard and the military made him an offer he couldn't refuse because Vietnam was starting up.
Yeah.
And so he came back in. They trained him to go to Vietnam, and he never went. Instead, he got transferred all over the United States, and us along with him.
Oh Lord.
But that's what he did. He then stayed in and became an admiral in the Coast Guard. And I a lot of the because of that, I grew up always on the water, and I have a love for sailing and being close to the water. I really do. And I've met lifelong friends that way that I still run into, even, because, so much of our work is hurricane work and catastrophe work. I run into people all over the country that I've known since the time I was, a kid, literally with my father in the Coast Guard. So, it's funny how one thing leads to another in life. I think, in the past you have and the dreams you have, I think I was always instilled with at least trying to work hard and doing the best, that I can. Certainly, I've failed miserably at doing the best at times, and hindsight's 20/20 for all of us.
But, oh my God, right?
It's. But I kind of fell into the, the answer to your questions. I had no experience being a lawyer. I was involved in a car accident just before I started at the University of Florida that got me interested in. Everybody else got lawyers, and we didn't. I did not get a lawyer. And my father and I settled our case, that we had with the against Geico Insurance Company. I still carry around a fractured left elbow that I can't straighten out my left arm from that. But that incident got me interested in the rights of people, and I think what really drove me to be a lawyer, not knowing what kind of lawyer I was going to be, was that when you look at where you stand, the one thing lawyers can do is at least analyze the situation and figure out where they stand. Because as a young man after that, I felt just like powerless and clueless. But it did get me very interested in the rights of individuals, and that's what lawyers do, and why I wanted to become a lawyer.
That's great. It's nuts how one little, like if that car would have smacked you that day, or vice versa, you may not have been sitting here.
I could have, because my grandfather was in the wall and deck business, I probably would have been interested in doing something in construction. Certainly, I was interested in computers and things like that. I've always had an interest in politics. God knows what one incident really drove me to become a lawyer, and that path then opens up for, the great thing about being a lawyer, you can do all kinds of things. You don't even have to practice law. And it's very, just the way of thinking about things, I think, is very positive for business. And I've enjoyed my career as a lawyer, and I'm proud to be a lawyer.
So you graduate law school, and you're a clerk. What kind? And that was pro carrier, right? That was the
So side. I started out, and I was fortunate. One of the person that I was assigned to work with was Paul Butler, who was definitely a leader in the property insurance legal field, and took me under his wing, pushed it hard, and I worked with two other attorneys, Bobby Santos and John Pappas. Eventually, the firm, John Pappas, became the senior person of the firm, and when I joined, the firm as a clerk, there was only 4 people there. The last count I saw, they had 144 attorneys all over the country, and they've been extraordinarily successful. And I have friends there, just lifelong friends that I've known forever. It's without a doubt. I mean, the opposing side, has a job to do, and they aren't your friend when they're doing their job. They're there to win and to beat you. There is a certain amount as a litigator. The other side's zealously got to advocate for, their client, and the emotions and tensions can get high in doing so, because I'm battling as hard, as I can for our client on the opposite side. I think if you're not truly a competitive person, it's hard to do litigation for a living. And I enjoy being, when people ask, well, what do you do, for what's your best hobby you like do? I like sailboat racing. Oh, you just like going, or no, man, I like to sail. Like, I want to beat the other people. It's not really just a matter of, I do putts around every now and then, but I normally, after a while, I like seeing whose boat's going to go fastest. And I think, that type of nature is played well with me being, a litigator. It might put more strain on it because we have our egos get caught up, and if you win or you lose, and on the cases. But I don't know if I'd have it any other way. It's in business, it's the same way too. You're going to win or lose. You're going to win the deal, you're going to lose the deal, that you get in. Are you going to be successful and financially profitable? People always have competition. It's just the nature of a capitalistic society. And for me, I enjoyed being mentored by Paul, and I love working with my colleagues there. But I think eventually, how do I say, there was a couple cases that we won that I just felt, man, had they had somebody as good as us on the other side, just doing property insurance and focusing on it, maybe we wouldn't have won. And, we've sized up. One of the things Paul says, Chip, you need to size up how good the other attorneys are on the other side. Is this going to be really, because you can beat some attorneys that are not as good. They're just not going to be as thoroughly prepared. They don't know the law. They don't have the money. They don't have one thing or another. You just think you can beat them. And there's other attorneys, man, are you sure you know what you're doing? Because this is going to be a real tough dogfight, slugfest as you go through it. You have to make that, call. We spend time even today, in our firm, and with computers, you can do it more than ever. We go back and try to find out the briefing that the other attorneys have done over a period of time, the experts that they've hired in the past. We find out everything we can. How does this attorney think, how good they are, and try to size that up as part of our preparation. And it's easier to do today. It's expensive, but you can dig into people's background. In our firm, one of the things I just always believed in was trying to get that type of information. We have most law firms have fired law librarians and never hired them back because computers took over. And you don't have a law library, as big as what they used to be. Used to be stack after stack after stack of book after book. Now computers, everything's digital, but most of it, and not all of it. But we hired a law librarian who's a knowledge manager, and a lot of what that person does in our firm is some of this background, research to help the attorneys who are litigating in our firm, just to find out what the other attorneys have done in the past, and so we can anticipate, what they're going to do. If you had to take a football analogy, it's almost like looking at film. What does your opponent do, so you can anticipate what they're going to do in your particular case as well.
That's so interesting. I never thought of it that way. Like, because everybody has like a personality and a way of, like we do. We have a certain way we handle a file, and it's a direct reflection of my personality and my vision and my goals. And I'm sure your firm and every the other opposing firms are kind of the same way. Not you can almost, I don't say guess, but you can almost see their moves before they're coming. Then that's interesting.
Jack, for everybody that's listening, the big insurance companies definitely, if they want to, in their database and search for data, they can definitely find your name. They can go back and find out what cases you've had, what case you have, what firm, what you do, the interrelationships between you and experts, interrelationships between you and attorneys. They have big databases, at least individually, on you. And so I'm certain somewhere, State Farm and Allstate and the bigger guys, if they even want to digitally download this whole thing, can do so. The fact that I was on a podcast with you, and this is what Merlin said in response to the answers, and seriously. And so they keep track of this stuff. If there's one thing that's going on in Florida, I mean, all of a sudden they're posting how many lawsuits law firms are filing against insurance companies. How many they filed, in a particular year. So we see all that information. So I know that they're gathering this information on databases and even sharing it with one another, which I think raises all kind of antitrust implications, but it's being shared as well too. So don't kid yourself about, it's not just me doing this on that side. Big insurance is doing it as well too, to all of us.
Probably 20-fold. I mean, people don't, I mean, these guys, I preach all the time when our training class is like, guys, when you post something on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, you own that. And that can be used for the good or the bad, because funny, I got banned from doing appraisals in Utah because American Family says I'm pro policyholder. Well, yeah, you're damn right I am, but that's just the world we live in. A lot of these guys understand when you hit send, it's out there. No matter good, bad, or ugly, it's there and it ain't going away, because somebody's take a screenshot of that, and you got to own that stuff. So a lot of these guys are pretty loosey-goosey, and a lot of your competitors as well, loosey-goosey on their Instagram and Facebook stuff, and that scares the living hell out of me, because I want to be very neutral on my post, and I don't want to have too much stuff out there. You know what I mean? It's a very fine line. And 40 years, 30 years ago, Chip, we didn't have to worry. We had beepers, nobody cared, right? We have to worry about that stuff,
It's a, it's interesting, because I've had some people try to, use what I say. I mean, I make a lot of public comments. I write in my blog almost every single day. And after doing this for 16 years now, I mean, I've put a lot of stuff out there about what my feelings are. And, I represent policyholders. We're dedicated to policyholder interests. So, that's no problem. I'm also dedicated to justice and seeing that fairness is done, as well. I don't believe in people being paid what they're not owed and making windfalls when they're not warranted. And it's as much as I, battle the insurance companies, there's a big insurance is a social product, and we've got to be concerned about their profitability, but not at how do I say, not at the risk of shortchanging the customer and the promise that's made there as well. So we're facing a lot of changes in our industry right now that are going on, that it's been, as I say, most people say it's a very staid industry, and the truth of the matter, over the last 100 years, it's been anything but that. There's been major changes in the property insurance industry over the last 100 years. I've been researching a lot more about that. I think many people don't, appreciate all the differences that have gone on. Everything from 100 years ago. I mean, and in 1922, you did not have replacement cost coverage. You did not have an all-risk property insurance policy. There was not a United States Supreme Court ruling indicating that insurance companies could be subject to the antitrust provisions. We had fire rating bureaus that were in effect, that insurance companies were sharing their information with, and state insurance commissioners were regulating them. But it was a lot different industry then than it is, today, and it's incrementally changed a lot, and it's changed a lot now with the advent of computerization and the growth within the industry, not just in the United States, but internationally as well.
Let's talk a little about that, because I actually had Steve Badger on last week, and ironically, he and I, we agree on about 75% of the stuff, right? Fraud's bad, fair is fair, right is right, but that 25% that's the difficult part, right? So
all Christians say you ought to go to heaven if you're a good person, but what that exactly means has a lot of different variations. As a matter of fact, it's not just Christianity. I would suggest that most religions are trying to go to a higher ethical, how do we treat each other, human beings? But as we well know, people have big differences, personal opinions that are very, very different from religion to religion, and it's no different even in business. And so even though if we disagree, I can guarantee you there's A, B, and C exceptions to what we agree or disagree upon.
Can you go over? I mean, so I saw a couple weeks ago. You guys were in. I was very intrigued by this. Number one, number two, it looked cool. You guys were in London about 2 weeks ago, and you got to tour Lloyd's of London. And if anybody needs to study the Lloyd's is, my God, I mean, talk about history and of insurance geeks like you and I, the history behind all that. It had to be, number one, let's talk about your trip. And number two, talk about what you and Steve talked about on stage, because it's relative to the bigger picture, I feel. And you guys debating this was great, number one. So kind of talk about the trip and then what you guys talked about, if you can.
Well, this
how many pints you guys had?
Yeah, for me, it was, we were supposed to do this 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And COVID breaks out. And the next thing I'm not going anywhere. I'm living in my condominium in my office. I can look at my office every day, from where I live, but I'm not even going into the office for 9 months. And I mean, it was crazy, and everybody was going through that. Yeah. But, this thing was supposed to go last year, got canceled again. They were going to try in the fall. It got canceled and finally was, opening up. And I have not traveled, much like everybody else. And I said, by God, if I'm going to go all the way to London, England to go give a speech with Steve Badger at Lloyd's, I might as well. So, Denise and I, we took off and went to Ireland for 4 days, had a travel day, Scotland for 4 days and a travel day, took a train down to London and just had a delightful time. I think travel is opening and people, it's mind opening and broadens our perspective on life. Yep. And maybe we as Americans will understand how ignorant we are about something and humble us a little bit in our opinion.
Very true.
The way everybody else does things and the way of the world. But, I was, there's no two ways about it. I mean, me walking in and giving a speech at Lloyd's, I was imagining that some of the people that put their neck out on the line to have an American policyholder attorney who's been so publicly, at times just bashing insurance companies, and not because I'm bad, I'm just honestly telling you what's going on. This is what's happening sometimes, and certain that I'm positive because I talked to some of the people. Says, we kind of went out on the limb to invite a person like you to come here, but everybody says, very kindly that you're, an honest and good speaker, and will get your point and views across in a way that maybe will make the others reflect. And I think Steve Badger does a pretty good job that way as well. I always worry about Steve. I said, Steve, but there's always, there's an agenda that you got for the insurance industry there. So I always, you have to watch. I have to watch Steve, but I listen very, very carefully. I've learned that, what he talks about and what his predictions of the future are kind of what the insurance industry is planning to do in the back rooms. And so it's important for us to pay very close attention to what Steve is going to makes predictions to do, because he's a thought and opinion leader within the insurance industry, and it's a lot of what he says. Then I can see it in the legislation, I can see it in the programs, I can see it in the policy forms, I can see it in any number of things. So he definitely has the ear of those that are leaders in the property insurance industry. So I didn't finish the whole speech. So I get down there. Yes. The people at Lloyd's were the most gracious, took us for, tours, up and down. They wanted to make certain we understood how they worked. And it's different. And one of the things, you have to think of Lloyd's as an exchange. It is not an insurance company.
Right.
It's a whole bunch of different insurance syndicates. And they're very sophisticated in terms of what they do, because the Lloyd's syndicates tend to specialize within certain lines of insurance. Some will do apartment complexes, some will do maritime salvage, some will do trucking industry stuff, some will just do nothing but insure satellites, some do transportation, every aspect. Some will do nothing but law firms and CPA firms and, for malpractice or whatever it might be. Some will do dams. They're specialists in dams, these large dams that are built all over the world. So almost every crazy niche business that's out there, especially the more newer businesses that haven't been around for a long, long time, the Lloyd's market is a real specialty marketplace for those that are in those businesses to go take insurance, to go get insured. And so as a result, some of that for the appetite that more traditional insurance companies have, or even the capacity to take areas of risks that are earthquakes, to do maybe school districts, or to do areas that are close to the water where you might have a hurricane, areas that are susceptible to a great deal of hailstorm, you just name anything that's just more catastrophe driven, type losses that you have to worry about. A lot of times the general admitted market really is just not set up to do that. And Lloyd's will come in and at least to a percentage amount fill in, for those, hard to place risks, that what the market calls specialty risks. But they are true specialists that trying to analyze this and take, they literally take bets. I mean, it's really what as underwriters and actuaries, but they want to know, what the promises are within the policy. They do study policy language at the point of underwriting and how that impacts claims. And the claims departments do report back how their policy forms, impact. I thought it was very fascinating. I even said, man, if you're a young person doing this, coming to Lloyd's and working in this place and being able to learn about all kinds of different industries and participate, in them, because let's face it, the reason insurance is so important is that if you can't somehow protect the investment, whatever piece of property it might be, that's typically got a loan on it, so it's the banker wants to know you've got insurance on it, or he's not going to issue the loan, for a growing business, no matter what it might be and the type of insurance you have. Without insurance, it being there underlying and safeguarding these risks as a hedge, society doesn't become as affluent. We can't grow as much. Everything would change. So it's a very, very important social product that you need to have specialists like people at Lloyd's and in a marketplace where, these risks can be written. And that, if there's one thing I learned, it's they're all about these risks and underwriting them. And most of the people at Lloyd's aren't so much interested in getting exactly what the claim is right, as much less as what do we have to pay. And they're relying upon other experts in other areas that tell them that, not all the time, and they're not going to be taken advantage of either.
Right.
But there's a different, I think, type of philosophy there that I find is not present in some of the more major American insurance companies that have turned, claims into a profit or cost containment center. And you see it over and over. We do our claim practice, what people call it. I call them claim practice cases, but they're bad faith cases. And you get into the sophisticated, management memorandum and bulletins, why did you come up with this program? And it always comes back to trying to increase profit some way. And anytime you have an underpayment or you're paying less, it's hard to do ethically if you're already paying the full amount and properly to begin with. Now that, we're going to change it and try to come up with some way that we're going to eke out more dollars out of our claims department. And I don't find that to that degree at all in the Lloyd's, claims. It might be with who they're hiring now, because each of those vendors are trying to prove to them that they do a better and tougher job, with that. And so I pick it up more on the vendors that are doing it, the large independent adjustment firms. And but it was different. It was a great trip, very historic, and I learned a lot from it. And I think for the last 2 months, a lot of my study, which I put on my blogs that I write every day, if anybody reads them every day, I've been writing about more historical, things, just because of, I think, my trip to Lloyd's. And then, where did some of these clauses come, like the appraisal clause? Was it always an appraisal clause, or was it an arbitration clause? And heck, I came over this past weekend or last week late, came across an insurance policy. There was a maritime policy from written in New York in 1761, I think. They had an appraisal clause in it, and it was kind of freaking me out because it said New York, and I kept saying pounds. I kept thinking, man, this is pounds. Maybe this was really written in London, not New York. And then I thought, oh my God, this is before the United States even was the United States. It was pounds because Great Britain, England was, overseeing the colony of New York at the time. So, it's, I'm kind of curious that way and digging into stuff. I often say, if you want to be a great attorney doing what we do for a living, which is insurance, where you got to first become a great grudge and pay a lot of attention to detail, and then all the other things about, being a lawyer with the advocacy skills you need, as well. So I sure have gone and covered a lot with that last question. I hope.
No, it's
talking away here.
I don't think a lot of guys realize how deep it goes way back. And Ben Franklin, and it's all that stuff that's got to where we are now. And it's cool when you do the research on that stuff, how interesting, and it's grown and changes. And dude, I tell you what, my first claim was in 1989, a fire claim. And dude, back in the day, man, we had a yellow notepad. I was a contractor. I had a tape measure and I think a Polaroid camera, and that's all we had. I mean, there was no DocuSketch or Matterport or Hail Trace, or dude, if it was a claim, we would literally meet. I mean, I keep telling this whole story, but we would meet the insurance adjuster on site. We agree on it, and he write me a check, and we get started.
There was no cell phone in 1989.
Dude, I had a roll of quarters in my pickup truck and a pager, man. And no fax machine either. That was before a fax.
Well, faxes were starting to come out by about 1985 or so, and they got a lot better. But we were in the middle of, it's just crazy. Word processing was all over the place, even during that time. There was a great, transition.
Yeah.
That was going on. We were just getting. If you wanted to send something right away, they had those big roller things that were the first fax machines that would come out. And Federal Express, I think Federal Express in 1985, was in 86 had a whole business on those rollers. You could go down and you could send something, it would get there in an hour or two, by rolling out on your paper. But anyway, it was a different time than it is now, and it's for people that are, the younger people who grow up, with computerization, with cell phones. It's just hard to imagine what it would be like. But, my parents would go, God, you don't remember what it was like before television. It was just radios. And I thought, God, what a crazy old time that must have been. And I'm certain that the younger people right now are thinking with you and I, Jack, what a crazy time that must have been without cell phones and being able just to send messages over the internet and things like that. But yeah, that was not with us.
No, and we didn't do moisture mapping. We didn't have ITEL reports. We just looked at the claim. It was I do miss that. It was a very raw. It was a lot more natural, a lot more interaction. We were able to make, I think those experiences gives us a little bit of an edge, because we do a lot of parking lot deals like you guys do, because the other side, and it's a relationship you create over these years that like you guys are legit, and we try to be legit as well. So when they get our letter of rep, they know we're not trying to screw them. We're just trying to be fair and honest and get to the right thing. That's all we're trying to do as PAs. And you guys that's why we work so well together. You guys are the same way. There's no dog and pony show or throwing crap against the wall. I mean, if it's $1 million claim, it's $1 million. It's not 3 million. You know what I mean? That's what frustrates the hell out of me.
Well, the thing is, for you, Jack, you might be able to make them that way, but I take them as they come to us. And so sometimes they're really, really put well together, and sometimes we're redoing, the whole thing. And that's where, Steve and I, even in that speech, had a big disagreement. He goes, all of a sudden the public adjuster has a contractor who says it's $1 million. They hire a public adjuster, it's $3 million. And lo and behold, they hired Chip Merlin. It says it's $48 million. And I look at him, I go, well, what do you expect? I mean, do you expect me just to believe what they had to say? Or do you want me to go in there and vet like a good attorney's supposed to do? Hey guys, did y'all take a look at the doors and windows on this? Well, we thought about it, but we didn't have the money to pay $500,000 for the experts to look at that.
Yeah.
Well, we do, and so we'll spend the $500,000 because based upon the weather reports, it's blah 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 blah. And so next thing you know, hey guys, maybe for the insurance company, I told Steve, and he just, you should be happy. I'm finding these extra damages, and they're all scientifically backed up, so your client could fully pay, everything that's owed and back up that promise. It would be horrible if they left stuff, on, and you could hear a pin drop as I'm saying that
Right.
there, because, it's, had they gone through and spent the $500,000, would they have found all these other damages? And so how do you explain that? You didn't even go, well, they're not reporting it to you. Well, they're not reporting it to you because they don't have the money to go out there and do that type of analysis. So, it's kind of interesting, when I go to some of these debates, because we can, as you said, we can agree on a lot. I don't believe in fraud. I don't believe in fraud one way or another. It's just not the thing to do. And, unfortunately, I get brought cases and we found out halfway through, they go, oh, what were you defrauding me too? What have you done?
Yeah.
And, and I don't like it. And then I'm stuck getting out of a case, and it's, and we have moral obligations not to be involved with that if we believe that there's fraud. But,
Right.
I do you believe that you ought to pay everything that's owed? Almost everybody's going to say yes.
Yep.
We just have differences of opinion about, number one, how do you go about determining what that is?
Yep.
And what the duties are to do it. And then number two, when we have differences of opinion and how, that's going to get played out and how that's going to get resolved. So, it was an interesting discussion with Steve. So yeah, we agree upon a lot of fundamentals, but, again, it's the exceptions and the ABC and the implications from each of those that we have significant difference of opinion on. I mean, I think public adjusters, one of the things that I wrote about afterwards, because I wrote a number of my reflections after the speech was over, is, Steve had mentioned about managed repair. And I think managed repair is a huge issue with respect to policyholders and, and public adjusters. I mean, as managed care really work that well in the United States? I mean, do you really think your doctor's happy about somebody telling him? I mean, I literally get this little pill that helps keep, from this fish oil stuff that keeps my triglycerides down. And since I've taken them, my triglycerides have come way down. And so we switched, in our firm to a different healthcare, and the healthcare says, well, your triglyceride levels don't warrant you having it. So what am I supposed to do? Go off of it so my triglyceride levels go back up so I get it, so then they come back down? I mean, and it's that type of maddening stuff, even about the argument about your prescriptions that people are getting nickeled and dimed with. And you almost have to be I hate to say it, especially going to a hospital, you almost have to be your own doctor or nurse to go hire a secondary nurse to make certain that the treatment you're getting there, they don't kill you. So, I'm not, I worry about managed care, and lo and behold, a colleague of mine, Renee Sigmund, who used to work in our firm, sent me
Houston.
She gave a speech in Galveston, and I started getting text messages. Oh man, Renee is going after these people that are here at the conference because they're working with the insurance companies setting up a managed, repair thing. And when I look through the brochure, it's just kind of hard to serve the insurance company's interest. The insurance company wants to manage repair so they could dictate how it's going to go. And you can dress it up, and put lipstick on a pig. It's still going to be a pig, but it's got to have lipstick on. So it's, at the end of the day, I mean, we'll see how it works out. I've read dozens of managed repair stuff. Everybody says it's all going to be ethical. And every contractor I talk with afterwards says, the one thing, they just keep drilling down on price. And if I agree to it, I can't do the type of job that's necessary to really do the job right. Every single contractor has told me that. One of the incoming presidents for NAPIA, Clay Morrison, was one of those preferred vendors. And he tells a story about the reason why he left doing that is because they were making him do things that were just completely unethical under a managed repair program. So I was a preferred vendor.
I was the State Farm Premier. This is back in the mid 90s. Remember State Farm had the Premier contractor program? I was the premier State Farm restoration contractor in North Scottsdale, Arizona. High-end stuff, right? I'm talking mansions, floods, all kinds of stuff. And they would send these estimates over and then give us a list of crap to go buy from Home Depot. Well, the stuff in these homes were from Home Depot. So it was chaos. So I had to hire 2 or 3 people just to manage being on the repair program. So my profit margin went rip. So I was basically, every time a claim came in, I should have wrote them a check for that. I was losing money every time. But the problem with that, Chip, it took me about 2 years to realize I was getting my ass whooped in because there was so much work coming in. We were carrying $2, $3, $4 million all the time. But eventually, by the time my books caught up, I was in the hole a couple $1 million because of their managed repair program. That's why I became a PA, because I couldn't make any freaking money anymore. It was insane.
It's and so I saw one of the things that they were trying to argue, and they even had an attorney, as part of this deal. Doesn't, he's been in the industry, but not this particular industry as long as what I have at all. And they're trying to say they're going to have these ethical boards to make certain the insurance companies do the right. They're just going to still say we're going to pay what the heck we owe, and what we think we owe under our perception of what reality is. And a lot of times their perception of reality is a lot different than what needs to happen out in the field. And that's where the rub's going to meet. And I think one of the things they were trying to sell was, to do away with the litigation and the cost of appraisal. We're going to do things all in a different way. And hey, maybe so. But the reason why you have the litigation at times is now the truth comes out about what really is going on.
Yeah.
And we can see what the claims programs are. And we can even probably read if there was litigation involving the managed repair, about why the managed repair, proponents within the insurance claim industry think this is really good to help, cut their costs, as they can, to compete. And don't get me wrong. I mean, you can't just pay what people want. That would be crazy.
Sure.
You'd go out of business. And there needs to be people that are going to pay, fairly, fully, and try to get the matter moved along, quickly. I think that's extraordinarily important. But it's when you get into the managed repair, really putting the insurance company totally into the position of being able to control the cost the same way that
on
they
both
do
sides
with HMOs and stuff. And whoever wins, doing the stuff with your doctor, it's after the fact, and it can be you do a lot of damage in between. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. It seemed to me that I talked to Steve about it. They seem hell bent. This is where it's going to go to in the industry. And I keep saying, well, all that's going to do is turn me into, because if you're actually going to do the repair, which you have a right to in most states, we'll be looking at matters after the fact.
Yep.
And suing the insurance company for their election to repair, and I'll turn into a much better construction defect attorney than what I am today, because that'll be forced upon me to prove that specifications weren't being met, and the defects down the line. And a lot of times trying to do things to go back and fix and do it right is very expensive. It's sometimes
10 times over.
Why didn't we just pay for this to begin with? We'll see what happens though.
So one of another of my frustrations is all over Facebook, people are talking about bad faith, bad faith, bad faith, bad faith. So you guys, I'm sure you do thousands of cases a year. How many of those are actually go to trial for bad faith? It's a small percentage. Am I correct?
No, it's rare. And, we try not to even use the word bad faith.
Correct.
The courts have called it that way. I call it that way, but there's nothing, quote, you don't have to be bad to act in a lack of good faith. The whole concept came about. The insurance companies have an obligation to treat their customers with the utmost of good faith. And when you fail to do so and you harm somebody, you ought to be accountable for that harm, whatever it might be.
Right.
Somehow we started calling all of these bad faith cases when they're really, it's a lack of good faith. And so a lot of, I try to tell when I teach, I said, especially public adjusters and everybody else, if you want to show a lot of ignorance, just start using the word bad faith in your correspondence with insurance. You hear it so much, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
No.
If you point out what they're doing wrong and spell it out in a way that's professional, maybe you'll get the claim, resolved quickly. It's almost as easy, Jack, as just writing a letter. Look, I've been calling you for the last 3 weeks. I haven't gotten a response back. They want to get started on it. This is your customer. It's my client.
Yep.
What do you want me to tell them about why you're not getting back to me? Ronnie Papa one time at a speech put his hand up. He goes, Chip, I know what you should do. Send a letter to the person's boss and ask him if he's sick or he died, just to make certain that everything's okay, because you haven't gotten a response back after 3 weeks, there's a lot of, I think, interpersonal skill sets are extraordinarily important with public adjusters. They can be learned, they can be trained, and all of us can do a better job, including me. I tend to have a lack of patience on things, and off I go, and I'll get upset when I should just keep my calm and keep talking and make that one extra telephone call that sometimes can make all the difference about moving or resolving a matter quickly. And that's just as important as fully, I think, for a policyholder. I don't mean to shortchange them at all, but we, in our firm, we put an emphasis this year on trying to find techniques that can more quickly resolve our litigation, getting our resolutions done quicker. Don't let things dragging along, especially in post-COVID. People, well, I got this back up and blah, blah, blah. And so if people have excuses, well, our clients really don't want to hear it. They want their matters resolved, as quickly as possible. So we have an obligation to try to find ways to do that to the best of our ability. And, Jack, with respect to your question, I would just suggest for the public adjusters that are listening, never, ever, ever use the word bad faith. Don't do it. Don't write it. Don't say it. Try to, how to, read books about how you can get along with somebody and not just get along, but also move these individuals who might be adverse, have other issues with you, to move them along, so they're saying yes and agreeing with you and getting a plan that's going to be prompt to get their matters resolved. That's what the public adjuster should be doing. That's what I'm trying to do better in my law firm as well.
It's one thing too that we've learned the hard way. I came from a firm that would love to quote statutes in their letters to these adjusters, and all that did was ring their bell to bring the legal team on the other side. So we have a policy here. We never talk about the law. If I need to bring Carter in from your firm to do that, that's what we do. We always, I never, ever, ever, ever quote the legal statutes, because all that does, we feel it rings the bell to the other side to put them on notice. So when I do have a problem, I'll talk to you guys first. And so I've learned that from you guys. We never, as a PA firm, start quoting laws. That's not our deal. We're there to negotiate the claim.
I think in every single state where there's a license for public adjusting, and one of the things in the license is don't practice law. So
pretty simple, right? Yeah.
And Larry Bache also, he's giving speeches on how everybody should stay in their own lane.
Yes.
And he gives an example. He goes, would you really expect me to go down and start trying to build somebody's building and all that? Because I'm a lawyer. I'm not in that business. And the contractors they know that, and the public adjusters know this, and we, supposed to know the law. Now, in order to do your job right, all of us have to know what each other are doing. And so we spend a lot of time studying what contractors doing and how they're supposed to estimate, study what public adjusters do in your business. And because it's similar to what the property insurance adjuster is supposed to do anyway.
Yeah.
And I often tell public adjusters ask me, education stuff, and certainly the CPPA and the SPPA are things to strive for as a public adjuster that you can get from the institutes and get that certification. But why not go get the certifications that are available for the insurance industry, the AIC and the CPCU? You have those calling cards along with the public adjusting ones. You're an educated individual in the field of insurance adjustment. Can you do more? Absolutely. You can go get certifications, even if it's from Hague on a roof certification. It just go, you can't get enough, on this, because you have to know so much as a public adjuster, and the interpersonal skill sets are important too. How are you going to talk to and get this matter resolved, quickly with the opposite side?
Yeah, it's a thing, man. People love those buzzwords, don't they? That's scary as hell. It never ends up well. So it's already been an hour. I can't believe it. We're getting ready to wrap up here. So crazy, number one. So a couple more things. Advice: if you had to pull a young PA or young attorney aside when they're just getting started, what advice could you give them that you've learned along the way that not necessarily you would change, but you could say, man, if I could have tweaked this down earlier in my career to make me a better attorney PA, what would that be? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for lawyers, I always say this, is you're not going to learn, and you are not an expert in insurance law just because you've read a lot of cases and a lot of statutes. You've got to learn insurance from what is in insurance textbooks. I'll give an example. I said, would you expect to be a great medical doctor by just reading medical malpractice cases? And the answer obviously is no. You would go, well, what do doctors do? How do they learn what they do? And so part of the information in our library that we do have is all the books that we can get about insurance adjusting, property adjusting, what insurance adjusters can do, how they do that. I think that for young public adjusters, especially for those who have not gone through a program with an insurance company, a property insurance company that's a major property insurance company. I mean, don't get me wrong, as much as I criticize the insurance companies, they do have better programs at Allstate, State Farm, some of the Travelers programs, auto owners, some of the stuff that they've got are good programs for beginning property insurance lawyers. And the training, is pretty good. They have some ethical issues in there, but
right.
But you can start to learn these things by going to the institutes and getting on a program there about, if you haven't done it, it's almost like, okay, we're going to let you out on the public and do this really important stuff. And you have really no book learning that is really significant other than having to pass a test. And I give an example that my girlfriend, Denise Kruger, who's an accountant, and she studied half a day, goes down and gets a public adjuster's license for Texas. And I mean, really, now maybe she's hung around with me, she's learned a lot, but
that's so scary, right?
So, where would I go? And the first thing I would do is I would make sure I have classwork that I'm doing on the outside, personally. And I would get that through the institutes, and I would start on, if you've been doing it long enough, the stuff for the public adjusters, but the stuff for the AIC is a great start.
Yep.
If you're doing estimating, which you should, be doing, there is no harm in getting a certification in Xactimate or SimSol, whatever it might be, and learning those things and getting as many certifications as you can in the areas that you're going to be working in. I just can't tell you how important that is. And then going to conferences with other public adjusters who are more experienced. Any conference you can go to and listen and learn from more experienced people is a great way to do it. One of the things, even at Lloyd's, at that speech I was giving, I was surprised about the number of younger individuals that just start and they do nothing for the first 2 years and sit next to somebody at a desk and just watch and observe.
Oh, wow.
And it's not paid a lot or anything like that. It's watching and observing, and then they get more responsibility. But I think you can learn a lot from people that have been properly trained,
right?
And have proper ways about it. But you need that other book stuff too, because not every mentor is going to be the best mentor in the world. There's a lot of people out there that they think they know what they're doing. They think they know what it's right, but I cringe at some of the stuff that they say and do, and it's just it's not accurate. Okay, so
no, I get it, man. And you write your own blog every morning. I mean, you actually do the blog yourself, right?
Yeah, when it says Chip Merlin, this Chip Merlin has written it. If it doesn't say Chip Merlin, it's somebody else in my firm that's written it. But if it's got my byline on it, yeah, I write it myself, and I write the vast majority of all the blogs that come out. We've been doing this now for 16 years.
Yeah.
For me, I've gotten to the point I learn a lot more by trying to teach people. Even when you ask me these questions, Jack, I've got to publicly give an answer to them. And I catch myself, I said this, but am I right about this? And it makes me go back and study, a little bit and get more answers and information. It's I don't know it all, not even close to it. And I'm learning new stuff and things I don't know all the time. So, I often say for public adjusting, if you're a quizzical individual and you want to know about the world and how things, work, there's so many different aspects to public adjusting that you can go and you can help people, you can take care of them, you get paid for it. You can learn how to console them, work on that case. The more you want to work on it, you can work on it all you want to, you know. But there's this study that's available. You learn about very different businesses. You learn about different homes. You can learn architecture, all kinds of the stuff that I've learned doing this is, just amazing. And I mean, literally, it will force you to study aspects of architecture. It'll force you to study aspects of engineering, aspects of construction estimate, construction specifications, the crazy manufacturer specifications for paint. You'll learn more different things about more different paint. Who in the world would think as a lawyer you're going to be learning all this different stuff about paint? But you have to learn it as a public adjuster too, because there's so many different types of paint. You even have to know where the paint's going to be applied, what type of year it is, how cold it is out there. Can they apply the paint? It is the things that you would never think become important because you're involved in the lives and the things that people own, all over, this great country of ours. And they get damaged at different times of the year, and they have different issues and problems, and you have different policies that pay for different stuff that are always changing. So it's, somebody's gonna say, geez, eventually you kind of know what you're doing. The truth of the matter is you never know everything what you're doing in this business, do you?
Well, no, we have to be a policy expert. We have to know how to write Xactimate. I was a licensed contractor in 20 some states. We have to be, our biggest part of our thing, like nobody really understands. You got to be part psychiatrist, because these poor people are literally going home and their houses are blown to hell from a hurricane or burned to the ground. They lost their whole business after 30 years. Part of it's just being able, a good listener, man, goes a long way. Because you get, so it's a lot sometimes, but man, they're pouring their heart out and their soul to you, and they're entrusting us with everything they've built in for a lifetime. And sometimes I think as a group, we lose sight of that. Like these poor people, you were in New Orleans with us. They've lost everything now. And I think we lose sight of the empathy part of our business, that holy crap, Mrs. Smith, it's gone. And we're the last thread of normalcy they have to try and get it back. And we are fighting tooth and nail to get their stuff back. And I think I preach all the time in here, guys, take a deep breath, because you don't want to call her back because you're exhausted. I get it. But man, I go home to my home every night, and this lady's still living in a freaking trailer or in some hotel still after she lost $250,000. It's gone. And that's everything she ever had. And we lose sight of that. And it's
unfortunate, because the empathy part of our business is the why most of us should be doing this. If you really want to take care of people and be a champion for somebody, this is a great business to be in as a public adjuster.
Yep. Well, and the biggest thing about PHIP is you can be mediocre, halfway decent, and still make a really nice living. And I think that's the bad and the good of it. You can make a lot of zeros by being really, 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 really good, but at the same time, you can be okay and still make a decent living. And that's, like you said, Denise literally Denise is smart as hell, right? But still, you shouldn't be able to pass a test in 3 hours, for God's sake. We really need to do a better job on our side to educate more and get more, just raise the standard, because I don't want to give you a crappy file. Hopefully we don't, but.
Well, I wrote something about that as well too. It's just recently, and that was on, one of the things from Lloyd's, is that if you read the literature for both insurance, especially for insurance industry, they're having trouble attracting younger people to what those people might think is not a very sexy or glamorous business. I'm representing insurance companies on property insurance claims. I mean, this is what I'm going to do for my adult life, and why do I do that? It's an important thing. I think from the public adjuster standpoint, understanding the immense responsibility that it is to be a public adjuster and to be in a position to be able to help somebody for that and actually get paid to do it from the recovery, really then requires those that are leaders in the public adjuster industry, to consider the barriers to entry of maybe being too low, because you're essentially allowing people without qualifications to be able to get licenses and they have a license to go do this.
Yeah.
And yet you have zero practical experience, really. And so, I raise that as an issue for the leadership of public adjusting. And I think it's a valid one that people that are in the industry should be seeking to raise the standards so they do a better job of being champions and making certain that others, you've reached it when other people in the industry would say something like, "Oh, you're a licensed public adjuster, or you're a licensed certified public adjuster," or something like that, and look at you with distinction. It's sort of like the difference between a bookkeeper and most states it's against the law. I didn't know this until I was with Denise. You can't say you're providing accounting services without having a CPA license, and those aren't as easy to go get. It's in most states now it's a 5-year college curriculum, and then you got to pass pretty difficult boards, and some people aren't able to do that after 4 or 5 tries. And that's I'm not suggesting maybe it to be that, but just given the responsibility, it's pretty significant. And I think it should be higher than what it is. And I probably catch some grief for saying that. I don't know, but that's
Chip, I agree. I mean, we're running hundreds of millions of dollars through our bank account, for God's sake. Like, billions in your case. We have a fiduciary responsibility and a moral and ethical responsibility to do it to the utmost of what we, in a lot of our guys and girls fail at that, and hopefully we're not one of them. But man, it's the stuff I get calls all the time. Like, somebody called me the other day, I just got a fire claim signed. It's my first fire. What do I do? I'm like, A, you don't sign it because you're not ready to sign it.
If they have to ask that, the next thing they do is do a co-public adjusting with somebody who does know what to do. That's what you first do.
And you grab an ulterior, you grab one of us.
Absolutely. Go get somebody's experience, knows what they're doing, go do it with them. But that you can't just you're practicing, you're learning on the job with something so important to somebody, seriously. So, and that's the truth. That's the current licensing law allows that. And I don't think that's right. I
agree. 100%, man. Mr. Merlin, it's been over an hour and a half. I can't believe it, man. I can't thank you. Number one, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You give so much back to us as PA. I can't thank you enough. And we've had some hell of a good times in Tampa together. I thank you for all the wine knowledge I've learned from you in the past, and all the fun stuff we've done. It's been great. I look forward to the next couple training sessions with you guys as well. Your staff has always been phenomenal to us. Once again, guys, we use Merlin on our stuff quite a bit, just because number one, it's because of Chip, and two, the people that he has involved on our side have never, I can tell you this, in 5, 6, 7 years, never dropped the ball on us one time. I get calls, I get texts back almost immediately when there's a question or a concern or a case coming up. They've been phenomenal for us to work with. So thank you for all that.
Well, I appreciate it. And thank you. Oh, for everybody else, if you're having trouble getting to sleep, Jack's holding in his hand right now a book that you need to go get. This will cure insomnia, if nothing else. So go buy, pay up. How to prevent a disaster with your own insurance company. Exactly. Absolutely.
So how do they get a hold of your firm? If people have questions or concerns, or how they have a case, or how do they get best way to get a hold of you and your firm, Mr. Merlin?
Well, it's pretty, there's only really one Chip Merlin attorney. So you have to Google, and I'm not off the grid, at all. And I have my cell number everywhere, but it's Merlin Law Group. I'm literally, if you put down Chip Merlin attorney, you will find me. I would suggest people go to my blog. If you put Chip Merlin blog, you can subscribe to it. And every single day we'll send you, as the blogs come out, we'll send you a blog about property insurance law.
The best thing about that blog, you can just type in the search bar something like Iowa appraisal, and you'll have 19 freaking, and I swear to God, Chip, we use that blog every day about something, because we work in so many states and everything is there. It's like a freaking encyclopedia of what we are and what we do. It's phenomenal. So guys, use that blog. It's great.
Yeah, it does have a great search function. So you can put, and if it doesn't, let us know. I'll be more than happy to get somebody. We'll research and write something about it. It's for some people that don't do this living, for this living, it'd be the most boring blog in the world to read, but especially the search functions. I'm finishing up one today on personal property valuation in Georgia, which has some different issues, but you can put Georgia personal property, adjustment, and you might not have that case today. You might have it a year from now, but it'll pop back up.
You can even type in Jack Hanks, and my name will pop up several times in the blog.
Your name will pop up there too. So yeah, if you've made the blog, you made the blog. No, my cell number is 813-695-8733. I give my cell number out there. You can catch us on the internet. It's real easy. We don't hide, and just call and text. That's all you need to do.
That's awesome. So we have a big training in Chicago with you guys, and one in Dallas coming up. We're excited. So gonna drink some more beer, have some more wine, eat some more steak, and train some of these PAs, man. We do about 4 of these a year with you guys, and I'll tell you what, I enjoy it. It exhausts me, but I enjoy the hell out of it. And we've gotten more accolades because of that. It just, hopefully we're making a little bit of dent. It's so important. So.
Well, Jack, thank you very much for having me on today, and I wish you the very best. And we'll see you up in Chicago and Dallas and wherever else. Okay.
You got it, man. Chip, thank you so much. Thank you for everything.
All right. Thank you, Jack.
Thanks for tuning in to the Because Experience Matters podcast. That's all for today's show. If you want to learn more or work with Jack in person, visit www.thejackhanks.com. Oh, and don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify to continue to grow the podcast and change the industry.